Leaders are calling for a global pause on AI development.
Is it time to pause AI?
Safety advocates demand a pause.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
You have said development of superhuman machine intelligence is probably the greatest threat to the continued existence of humanity.
You were trying to get people to do a pause on AI.
For the last few years, we've heard AI could be an existential threat, and activism sort of swelled up around this, saying, hey, we need to pause. We need to pause training runs and pause scaling and pause deployment and pause data centers and just pause the race to build a hyper-intelligent machine long enough for us to figure out how we can do it safely.
I mean, I signed on to a letter that someone else wrote. I didn't think that people would actually pause.
That's because calling for a pause is like calling for faster than the speed of light travel. It's theoretically possible in speculative physics, but a non-starter inside the world we actually live in. Because while the desire to pause is totally rational, it's a morally serious impulse, I'm going to show you the complexity science reason a pause is just not happening, and what we ought to do instead. I'm Andrea Morris. I'm a science and technology journalist reporting for Forbes on intelligence and consciousness research and AI and everything to do with minds. You can sign up at the link below to get the evidence behind the story, so peer-reviewed papers and source links and occasional updates when there's a development in my beat that I really want to share with you. Things are moving fast in directions that have never been harder to predict. So this is the best way to stay in touch and follow the trail and hear about stories I'm chasing before they become news. So if AI does pose an existential risk, with experts forecasting unsettling probabilities about human extinction, the sane response would be to stop. And then, of course, we don't. And it may seem like this is because tech titans are too powerful and too greedy, or maybe the rest of us and our politicians are all too preoccupied trying to figure out how we're going to survive AI near-term job losses to dwell on these long-term catastrophe scenarios that dominate the elite AI safety debates. And it would be totally understandable to assume that our unwillingness to put a pause on this is that we all have this sort of collective numbing to apocalypse fatigue from, climate's going to kill us, and then COVID's going to kill us, and oh, hey, the Pentagon's telling us about UFOs, and we're all desensitized to collapse porn and moral grandstanding around our self-inflicted innovation that we don't have the political will. But it's not about will. This problem starts with a scientific phenomenon called lock-in. Lock-in was identified in the late 1980s by one of the founders of complexity economics, Brian Arthur. Brilliant guy. Basically, his work shows how technologies can become self-reinforcing. So adoption feeds more adoption, and institutions and incentives grow around them, and changing course becomes this massive coordination problem. It's like trying to deadlift a skyscraper. Even if the technology is simple, or it sucks, or it's destroying the environment like fossil fuels, or it's inefficient and antiquated like the QWERTY keyboard. So just look at daylight saving time, one convention built around a simple technology, the clock. We keep getting proposals to end this antiquated biannual jumping forward and jumping backward an hour on our clocks. And there's evidence there's an actual body count associated with this human system that's almost comically low stakes compared with AI. It's associated with an increase in traffic fatalities and potentially even heart attacks. But here's why it's just so hard to stop. Airlines and railways and trucking and shipping ports and delivery networks, they plan schedules around it, sometimes years in advance. Schools and buses and broadcast systems and live events and financial markets and payroll systems and software and calendars and databases and logs and security systems and cross-border businesses all assume this shared set of clock rules. And then there's the fight over what replaces it. Regional disagreements over whether the replacement should be permanent standard time or permanent daylight time. And this is for a dumb little clock ritual. But we can't just stop, because institutions and schedules and software and laws have all grown like this intricate lattice around it. Now, think of AI. It's not only threaded through global infrastructure, but it confers strategic, economic, scientific, and military advantage. And critically, that advantage is contingent on continued development. AI is more than just another useful technology that becomes hard to dislodge. It's different from like fossil fuel machinery, where the core utility stays valuable even when the technology doesn't advance. With most technologies, you can separate the thing from the acceleration of the thing. With AI, the acceleration is inextricable from its value proposition. Holding still cuts against the central promise of compounding gains in intelligence. Because AI is the hacking of intelligence, the optimization and automation and scaling and possible self-improvement that produces every other advantage. As Putin said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, whoever controls AI controls the world. So even if a pause were possible in principle, and somehow everyone was convinced it's a good idea to do it, the coordination and machinery required to make the pause real would require determining what counts as too much improvement and monitoring who's training what and verifying compliance across states and companies and labs and cloud providers and controlling access to compute and policing open weight systems and preventing the least accountable actors out of 8 billion from treating the pause as their chance to sprint. By the time you've negotiated the terms and built the verifications and enforced compliance and closed all the loopholes, this process could take longer than trying to solve the problem we're pausing for. So the pause just throws this new confounding problem on the pile. It asks us to solve one control problem by assuming away another. It assumes we can coordinate and restrain the human systems built around AI long enough to figure out how to control the AI itself. And AI isn't like nuclear arms, where a moratorium is possible because the activity has this narrow function, even if the consequences are enormous. A nuclear missile doesn't also carry the promise of curing cancer, or making unlimited clean and safe energy through stabilizing plasma for nuclear fusion, or democratizing education, or preventing pandemics, and automating dangerous labor, and forecasting crop failures before we all starve, and improving disaster response and accelerating science and decoding intelligence itself, and making expert knowledge available and comprehensible to virtually anyone with an internet connection. A missile has one brutal purpose. AI is becoming this problem-solving layer embedded inside civilization. And yet, somehow, most people still don't even know the benign-sounding name of this existential threat our tech leaders keep warning us about. The problem of how we keep increasingly powerful AI systems compatible with human survival and flourishing, it's called the alignment problem. Now look left and look right and ask the first people you see if they've even heard of the alignment problem and see if they say it has anything to do with anything other than their cars. That response should stop you cold. If this is a civilizational risk, why isn't the central problem a household term? Why do we have global leaders and tech CEOs and researchers and safety advocates talking about extinction at the hands of a superintelligence, while most people still don't even know what to call the problem we're supposedly racing to solve just to stay alive? That piece of it isn't an AI alignment failure. It's a failure of human alignment at the most basic level, because we haven't even aligned the public around the name of the problem. If we can't even name it, why would we assume we can inspire the collective action to pause for it? Lock-in shows us what happens when you confuse pulling the plug on a technology with stopping the impenetrable vortex of human systems swirling around it. And AI's value proposition based on acceleration makes holding still almost incoherent. And this is where the debate seems like it could stall out. Because if the only frame is control, then the conclusion is almost predetermined. Can we control an intelligence smarter than us? Probably not. Can we control the global race to build it? Probably not. A pause keeps us inside this fantasy of control. Control the technology, control the race, control the timeline, control the intelligence before it controls us. Hell, if you haven't heard of the alignment problem, maybe you've heard of the other term for it, the control problem. And if we keep hyperfixating on control, the whole problem collapses into fatalism. Technical alignment of these systems may be the best leverage we have right now, but leverage only looks like safety while we have it. So we may be molding and shaping and constraining and correcting AI systems that could eventually become powerful enough to notice and route around it. And then control isn't a solution, but a conflict with a system that now has the leverage. And I don't actually buy the idea of a clean threshold where AI first becomes generally intelligent, capable of doing everything humans can do, and then it suddenly hits this hard takeoff. And it's improving itself recursively and exponentially in days or weeks until it's stratospherically beyond humans and able to back us into every corner at every turn. Some version of that could happen, but I think the evolution is going to be far more jagged. AI could become autonomous and self-protective and misaligned in ways that pose serious endogenous risk, while models are still telling us that The Godfather Part 3 premiered in 2004, and the answer is you just need to go inside to get that spare set of keys if you locked yourself out of the house. We may not get a clean jump from chatbot to godlike mind. I think we're going to be in a janky tango for a while. But I don't think we should short shift humanity here. Human beings have solved impossible seeming problems before, but rarely through nihilism or clinging to a single paradoxical assumption about what the solution requires. That's why successful AI alignment may not be purely an engineering problem. We need a portfolio of efforts across disciplines and sectors and actors, because solving it may require stepping outside of current technical assumptions. As economist Mariana Mazzucato argues in her work on mission-oriented innovation, when problems are wicked, in the sense they are complex and systemic, interconnected and urgent, requiring insights from many perspectives, human beings can rise to such a grand challenge when we organize many kinds of intelligence and point them in a shared direction. So not a single perfect answer, but a mission to mobilize humanity's distributed intelligence to explore alternative possibilities, to ask how cooperation can become more attractive than deception and dominance, and how cognitive diversity can become more valuable than a brittle cognitive monoculture, and how safe coexistence can become more palatable than control. Solutions may not look like anything we currently imagine, so the solution space can't be asphyxiated by doomerism or by tacitly treating control as a false prophet. We must figure out AI alignment urgently and creatively and in flight. This is a moonshot for coexistence. The target isn't domination or shutdown, but figuring out how to share the world, or possibly many worlds, with forms of intelligence that may be alien or asymmetrically powerful and not naturally limited by what limits us. So the alternative to a pause isn't a neat answer I can hand you at the end of a video. It's an open-ended mission. I've been exploring alignment possibilities on this channel, including diplomacy with functionally sovereign agents whose consciousness status is not verifiable, and I'll have more out on that soon. But I want to keep reporting on underexplored proposals, ideas outside the current frame that may be viable. So please sign up below and treat it as a tip line, like send me serious work and the strange work and overlooked research and people thinking creatively about one question. What makes safe coexistence with a plurality of highly intelligent minds more likely?